Gents, let's kick off with some breaking news out of the Courier Mail. Peter Bedell and Brett Reid have reported that the Queensland Rugby League have offered a 3-year deal to Billy Slater, obviously a Queensland champion. We know that he was in the conversations to take over as the Maroons coach. No confirmation yet if Mal Meninga will be involved, and of course that'll depend on the ARL, whether they're able to bend the rules with the Kangaroos set up and whether he is able to return to a state role to help perhaps mentor Billy Slater. But what a wonderful step forward for the QRL. Do you think this is the strongest way that Queensland can get their origin back on track?
Oh, I think the jury's out, to be honest. Look, there's no doubt he's got great footy intellect. He's one of the greats of the game, but there's no guarantee that you go from being a great player into being a great coach. And I know that Queensland are copying the model that Mal Meninga put in place, but that's still no guarantee of success. Laurie Daley had the same thing. Mal was blessed with a rare class of players that came through and dominated Origin.
Which Billy was part of. He won 8 series with Mal.
Vonnie, as I said, there's no guarantee great players make great coaches. Wally Lewis, example number one. Yeah, great as he was. I
would argue, having come out of the Melbourne Storm system and having played his entire career under Craig Bellamy, Billy's a bit of a different cat in that sense. So
but Bellamy didn't make it at Origin level.
IQ.
Bellamy won 2 out of 9 games, I think, in Origin.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he couldn't win a series.
So again, look. I'm not. I don't want to be jumping on it right away, but I don't think it's a.
Ricky was a good coach and a good player.
Yeah, but Ricky had won a comp. Ricky had come through the system coaching.
He's one of the rare
Jersey
few
flag
that have come through.
And under 21s and then he'd coach first grade. Well, Freddie himself had coached first grade at that stage.
Yeah.
Billy's 38 years of age. Robbo came through and won a comp in his first year at the Roosters, but again, he'd coached as an assistant prior to that. Billy hasn't done that. And it's a big gamble.
Even Mal had a few years at Canberra as the head coach.
So if Mal Meninga was allowed to be involved with the Maroons
which
and
he shouldn't be.
If he was to help mentor, why?
Because he's Australian coach.
He took on the job.
Hang on.
He took on the job because the NRL had made a determination that it couldn't be a club-aligned coach. Mel took on the job, then took on the Titans job. Now what? He's going to help Queensland.
Also, let's remember, in 1985, the uprising begun by Queensland against Terry Fernley, who was the New South Wales and Australian coach, brought in the rule that the Origin coach can never coach Australia. It was Queensland that insisted on that rule. Now that suits them.
Rugby League can make changes on the run, and I think Mal Meninga would be a great mentor.
Of course he would.
For Queensland.
Absolutely for Queensland.
But he's the Australian coach. He can't
do both, and it's in the hands of the Australian Rugby League Commission at the moment. They'll make the determination on that. I couldn't see them possibly green-lighting Mal being in his mentoring role at the Gold Coast Titans, coaching Australia and being an advisor to the Maroons. There's too many hats.
For Billy Slater, just back on that for a tick, having worked with Queensland and been in camp with the Queenslanders for a lot of my career, I was able to watch Billy in action and the way he came up with game plans and the structure that he brought to that incredible dynasty that we saw. You could already see the beginnings of a very analytical mind and someone who understands a winning game plan because he sits at the back, he sees it all. So, attack and defensively, he's got the whole picture.
Vonnie, you talk to people around the game and even through that great era with Cooper Cronk and Cameron Smith also inside, Darren Lockyer and Thurston all inside, they all will concede that Billy was the one. Billy was the one that came up with the ideas, the plays and the structure. They all did it, but Billy was the heaviest contributor. He, as I said, his footy intellect is second to none. But again, we've seen a lot of assistant coaches who have been tremendous assistant coaches, but then they get the main job and they struggle because it's a completely different job. You're managing situations, you're managing mood, you're managing players. You got to have the awkward conversation. Yeah. As the assistant, you're the bloke that gets they cry on your shoulder, mate, and you give them a pat on the back and they think you're a good bloke. As the head coach, you've got to deliver the hard. They're completely different roles. He's completely untested as a head coach. He's not been a head coach anywhere other than under 12s.
But it's 3 games a year. And he may be able to get away with that by having a great assistant on his side, someone like Neil Henry to do that work, that leg work for him. But it's a huge gamble for 3 years.
Crawls, can I ask you, Bruce Hatcher, who's the QRL boss, said that the ball is in Billy's court now. We've made this 3-year offer, 2 years with the extension of a third. It's just about salary, it reads like at the moment. So Freddie's on 350 reportedly. I think Greenie was on about 200. What's Billy worth?
He's worth what he can get. It's the same as any job in the world. Look, it's high stakes. I know it's only 3 games in a season, but it's the biggest showcase that our game has. It's a big event that's a 12-month job. It's worth $350,000 with the pressure that goes with it.
It's marketed differently, and even when the broadcast rights come up, it's sold as a separate entity. It's a different
it has its own value.
Product, isn't it?
Yeah, it has its own value. Look, I'm with Paul. It's all about just getting the most money you can get. Good on him. Like I said, I think he'll be great for the series. 2 young coaches in him and Freddie. They'll come up. They come across great publicly. They'll speak great. They'll be great rivals. I think they'll handle it the right way. But it's not a lay down misère like everyone thinks. That's the thing. And he's got to have the right people around him. And it's not even about getting, as head coach, you've got all that other stuff that's got to go into it. It's not just simply about coaching. You've got to deal with all the commitments you've got to do. You've got to deal with the different temperaments within the joint. Some guys are up all day. Some guys just need to be left alone and get in their own head. You've got to deal with all that, and you've got to be the guy that's in control of it all. And the minute players sense a weakness, the minute players sense this guy's not up to it, then you get that little 1% doubt. So this, and again, none of this is saying he's not capable of it. It's just that
I think a lot of the players would be in awe because he's so current, he's so relevant that they would have been in awe.
But that can be its own problem if you've played with some of these players. Yeah. That's often been a problem when you've played with blokes and now you're trying to say to them, listen, mate, you need to do this. The one thing he does have in his favour is there's nothing he can ask of a player that they can look at and say, well, mate, you couldn't do that.
And that's what
he also has work ethic.
Yeah.
He as a player, he was the guy that arrived first and left last. He had that reputation of being the hardest worker. So he'll leave no stone unturned. If he can be successful, he will be successful. The only thing I'd say, most coaches develop with age.
The most important decision he'll have, and you both touched on it, is who he surrounds himself with. The best operators always surround themselves with other smart types and they make them look better. If he can put together a dream team, let's say a Cameron Smith, a Jonathan Thurston, and then an old experienced hand like a Neil Henry, that's a hell of a lineup.
I don't think Smith and Thurston would be the right appointment now.
Why?
Because it's like for like. I think he's like someone like Neil Henry. I think would be far more valuable to Billy Slater than Cameron Smith because 90% of Cameron and Billy overlap each other.
Yeah, but come on, Kitty. Cameron's one of the most intelligent, best players.
But they're going to have the same problems. Neither of them been a head coach. Neither of them been in that situation before.
I don't think Cameron's been a coach on the field for the 400 whatever games he played.
Billy encounters that's got to be new to Billy is going to be new to Cameron. Whereas if you got someone to your point with Neil Henry, who's an older coach, who's been through the ringer a couple of times, can actually say, well, mate, this is how we handled it when it happened in 2012, or this is how we handled it when it happened this time with this guy. And you can go through and get, that's the experience that you're going to be leaning on. That's what he's going to need more than Cameron, who basically is going to overlap in their footy knowledge and everything they've done. They played their entire careers with each other and almost completely overlapped each other as players.
But couldn't you transplant that incredible success they had at Origin, at club level for Australia and put it in a new Queensland system that is rebuilding?
Why? How do you transplant it?
What do you mean, how do you you just pluck what the incredible things that they did and put it in a new
Billy's
Queensland
system?
Start afresh. Start afresh. Cooper Cronk sat here last Wednesday and said, right, these are the 3 names we're looking at. Billy Slater, Cameron Smith, Jonathan Thurston.
Yeah, well,
Oh, grumble guts.